Cale Voss ruled the Ironclaw pack, and everyone in the northern lands knew his name before they ever saw his face. He was tall, strong, and calm, in a way that made people trust him even when he made mistakes. He had one mistake that followed him for 5 long years, and it was the biggest one of his life. Her name was Elara. She had come into the pack as an outsider, a healer's daughter with steady hands and a sharp mind for herbs and medicine. She was not born into royal blood, but Cale chose her anyway, because their bond as mates was something no crown could compete with. For 2 years they were happy. She helped the sick in the village. He ruled with more patience, because she reminded him to slow down and think before he acted. Then his younger brother, Ronan, was poisoned at a feast. It happened fast. One moment Ronan was laughing at a joke, and the next, he was on the floor, his skin turning pale, his breath shaking. The healers saved his life, barely, but the poison had come from a rare plant called night ash, a plant that only grew in small amounts, carefully controlled, and kept in one place in the entire keep, Elara's medicine room. The court did not wait for real proof. Fear moves faster than truth, especially in a room full of powerful people looking for someone to blame. Advisors whispered that an outsider had married into royalty too easily, and that outsiders cannot always be trusted. Old jealousies came out into the open. Someone said they saw her near Ronan's cup that night. It was a lie, but it spread like fire through dry grass. Cale listened to all of it, and here was his mistake. He let his fear for his brother make the decision, instead of his knowledge of his wife's character. He knew Elara. He knew she was gentle and honest. But grief clouds even strong minds, and in that clouded moment, he chose to protect his pack's trust in him over defending the one person who had never once given him a reason to doubt her. He ordered her exiled. The banishment ceremony was cold and quiet. Elara stood in the middle of the great hall, chains of formality around her wrists, though not real chains, just symbols meant to shame her in front of the whole court. She looked at Cale one last time, waiting for him to say something. Anything that would stop this. He said nothing. His silence was its own kind of answer. She did not cry until she was far outside the gates, alone on the road, where no one from the pack could smell her sadness and use it as proof of guilt. Elara traveled for many days until she reached a small town called Thistlemore, far from Ironclaw's borders, a place too small and too quiet for anyone important to bother visiting. She rented a tiny shop with a crooked wooden sign and began to sell herbal remedies and simple medicines to the townsfolk. It was humble work, nothing like the life she once had, but it was honest, and it was hers. Slowly, she built a new life. She grew her own herbs in a small garden behind the shop. She learned the names of every person in town, and they learned to trust her advice on fevers, coughs, and aching joints. She adopted a stray cat that wandered into her shop one rainy evening and never left. She named him Grievance, because it made her smile every time someone asked why, and she never fully explained it. 5 years passed this way. She still remembered Cale, of course. You do not forget someone who was once your entire heartbeat. But she trained herself not to dwell on him. She kept her days full of work, her evenings full of quiet, and her nights mostly free of tears, though not always. Back in Ironclaw, Cale's rule continued, but something in him had changed. He became a fair leader, even a wise one, but there was a distance in his eyes that people noticed and never mentioned. His advisors assumed it was the weight of leadership. Only a few people close to him understood it was the weight of a decision he could never take back. 18 months after Elara left, the truth finally came out. A young guard confessed, under the pressure of his own guilt, that a cousin of Cale's, a man named Doran, had planned the poisoning to remove Ronan from the line of succession and place himself closer to power. Doran had used a servant to plant the poison, and had made sure suspicion would fall on the newest and easiest target, Elara, the outsider bride. Cale had the truth nailed to the doors of the Great Hall so the entire kingdom could see it. Elara's name was cleared, but clearing a name on paper does not undo 5 years of loneliness, and Cale understood that better than anyone. He did not go looking for her right away. Shame is a strange thing. It can make a person hide from the very person they wronged, telling themselves that leaving her in peace is a form of kindness, when really, it is only a way to avoid facing what they did. Cale told himself this for almost 4 more years, 4 years of ruling well, of being respected, of feeling hollow in a way no one around him could see. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, his body began to fail him. It started small, a tremor in his hand that would not stop, then a heaviness in his chest that made even simple tasks tiring. His wolf, the part of him connected to his instincts and his strength, grew quiet, and then quieter, until it barely answered him at all. The healers examined him for days, running tests, asking questions, growing more worried each time. Finally, the oldest healer in the keep, a woman named Bryn who had served 3 generations of the Voss family, sat Kale down and told him the truth. "This is bond rot," she said. "It happens when a mate bond is broken by force, not by choice, and not by death. The magic that connects 2 mates does not know how to heal a wound like that. It simply keeps hurting, slowly, spreading through the body like a sickness that has nowhere else to go." "How do I stop it?" Kale asked, though part of him already feared the answer. Bryn hesitated before speaking. "There is only one way to close a bond that was broken by force. The person who was pushed away must choose to open it again, willingly. No potion or spell can force this. It must come from her heart, not from duty or fear." Kale sat in silence for a long moment. He thought of Elara's face the night he exiled her, the way she had waited for him to speak, and he had said nothing. He thought of the years she had spent alone because of his silence, and he understood, with a clarity that almost hurt more than the sickness itself, that he had no right to ask her for anything. But dying does strange things to pride. It was Ronan, healed now and grown into a thoughtful young man, who finally convinced him. "You always taught me that leaders take responsibility for their mistakes," Ronan said. "This is your mistake, brother. Going to her is not asking for a favor. It is finally doing the thing you should have done 5 years ago. Whatever she decides, at least you will have been honest." Kale traveled to Thistlemore alone, without guards, without the marks of his rank, wearing plain traveling clothes so no one would recognize the Alpha King in a quiet market town. He found her shop by scent before he saw the sign, the smell of dried lavender and crushed rosemary carried on the wind, familiar even after all these years. The bell above the door rang softly when he stepped inside. Elara was kneeling by a wooden crate, sorting bundles of lavender, and she did not look up right away. "We are closing soon," she said, assuming he was simply a late customer. "Elara." Her hands stopped moving. She knew that voice. She would know it anywhere, in any lifetime. She looked up slowly, and for a moment, neither of them said anything at all. The crate of lavender tipped over between them, spilling purple petals across the floor, and for a strange second, both of them focused on the mess instead of the much bigger thing standing in the room. "You have some nerve," she finally said, though her voice shook slightly. "I know," Kale answered. "I have no right to be here, but I need to tell you something, and then I will leave if that is what you want." She crossed her arms, waiting. "I am dying," he said simply. "There is a sickness in me, caused by the bond we shared being broken by force instead of by choice. The healers say, only you can stop it, and only if you choose to. I am not here to demand anything from you. I came because you deserve the truth, even the parts of it that make me look small." Elara felt her chest tighten. 5 years of anger, 5 years of loneliness, 5 years of quietly missing someone she had told herself she was over, all rose up inside her at once. "You put a mark on me that told the whole kingdom I was a poisoner," she said. "You did not ask me if it was true. You did not give me a chance to explain. You just decided, and you let me walk out those gates alone." "I know," Kale said again, "and I have thought about that moment every single day since. I let my fear make a choice that my heart already knew was wrong. I am not asking you to forgive that. I am only asking you to know the truth, because you deserve at least that much, whether or not you choose to help me." For a long time, Elara said nothing. She knelt down and began gathering the spilled lavender back into the crate, handful by handful, because her hands needed something steady to hold on to while her mind worked through 5 years of feelings all at once. "If I do this," she finally said, "it means opening the bond again. It means feeling everything I trained myself to stop feeling. I understand if that is too much to ask." "I did not say I would not do it," she said quietly. "I said it would not be easy." Kale waited, saying nothing more. letting her make her own choice in her own time, the way he should have let her speak for herself 5 years earlier. Finally, Elara stood up, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked toward him. She placed her palm gently against his chest, right where his heartbeat lived, and closed her eyes. She felt the moment she let go of the wall she had built inside herself. It was not sudden or overwhelming. It was warm, slow, and familiar, like sunlight returning to a room that had been cold and dark for far too long. Cale breathed deeply, and for the first time in years, it did not hurt to breathe. Neither of them spoke for a while. The lavender still lay scattered across the floor, refusing to be finished with the moment, just because the important part was over. "I am not coming back to Ironclaw," Elara said finally. "My life is here now." "I understand," Cale said, and he meant it. "You will need to send your healers here to check on you properly." "I will." He looked for just a second, like he wanted to argue, like the old instinct to command and control was rising up inside him again, but he let it go. He had spent years learning that some things cannot be commanded, they can only be given. The cat, Grievance, wandered out from beneath the counter and sniffed at Cale's boots with obvious suspicion, before stalking away again, clearly unimpressed by Kings. Elara almost laughed at that. She did not fully let herself, not yet, but for the first time in 5 years, laughter felt possible again, and that alone felt like the beginning of something new, something neither of them needed to rush. Cale stayed in Thistlemore for 3 days, not as a king, but simply as a man learning how to earn back trust one honest conversation at a time. He helped fix a broken shelf in her shop. He listened when she talked about her years alone, and he did not interrupt, even when the words were hard to hear. He apologized again, not because he expected forgiveness, but because she deserved to hear it as many times as she needed. When he finally left to return to his duties, there was no promise between them, no grand declaration of a happy ending. There was only an understanding that the door between them was open again, even if neither of them knew exactly what would walk through it. Sometimes the most important endings are not the loud ones. Sometimes they are simply the quiet beginning of something being made right, one honest step at a time.